Markets Now is brought to you by the 5-year anniversary of Brevant Seeds. Here's to 5 years of not just winning, but collecting one game-changing W after another. See all of our wins at brevant.com/wins.
Well, thanks for joining us for Markets Now. I'm Michelle Rook with Brady, Huck of Advanced Trading, and we're seeing mostly lower prices except for hogs this morning. And Brady, let's start off talking about the grains, especially corn and soybeans. We've seen some selling pressure here the last couple of days, and now we've got some key support areas we're watching that we need to hold, right?
Right. Yeah. We've had a nice run since the August WASD lows that put in, a nice bouncing corn market, nice run up in bean market. And we've just got more sellers than buyers here this week, it appears, and some pressure coming back, retracing those gains, testing some key moving averages. Bean market, November beans testing the 200-day and the 50-day moving average. And corn actually just broke this morning yesterday's low trade range, and looks like it's hunting the 50-day moving average here out of the gate. So wheat's definitely weighing on the whole market and adding some pressure to corn as well, but not what we want to see here in the grain side of things, Michelle.
Right. So some profit taking is part of it, as you said, after this recent run, but also we are starting harvest in some areas. So are we getting a little bit of that early hedge or harvest pressure too, you think?
It certainly could be. Yeah, harvest is getting here quicker than maybe some of us want it to, but it comes every year. And sometimes it's good to get out in the field, though, and get the combines rolling and see what we've actually got. Haven't heard much for yield reports yet out of the gate, but yeah, some potential harvest pressure here. When we look at the 10-year moving average, though, seasonals, Michelle, the 10-year suggests that maybe the bottom's in, but the 20-year, sometimes we see this type of bounce midsummer, late summer, and then see further lows as we dig into harvest. And which one are we going to see? Are we going to see more of the 20-year where we see lower lows going into harvest, or is the lows in?
Yeah, that is kind of the debate here right now, because we put our low in August last year in corn and soybeans. And so there was a lot of school of thought maybe we had done it already. A lot's going to be determined when the combines roll, though, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. U.S. harvest season hitting here. What actually is out there in the field? And then we got South America planting right around the corner. And how many acres are they going to plant of soybeans? Soybeans is the big crop that goes in here this time of year down there in Brazil. How many acres are they going to plant? And then what's the conditions going to be like for getting that crop out of the field? So bottom line, U.S. crop's not a bust, but everybody's going to be watching those yield numbers as the combines start to roll.
Although we have had some private analyst estimates out already here ahead of next week's WASD, and at least Allendale's, they were pretty darn close to where USDA came in, and I know a lot of other firms have been as well.
We'll get the StoneX number here today. I think all eyes will be on some of those numbers. And you got the WASD report next Friday, where we get the objective yield data versus the survey-based and the NDVI imagery-based data that we see in August. So going to be interesting to see what gets printed next Friday. But, a lot of skepticism about maybe where the USDA is at and is the highest number we've seen in on that corn yield number. But bottom line, there's a lot of acres out there, and the crop isn't a bust. Maybe the top end's coming off. Maybe we're not 188. Maybe we're 185, 183. But still looking at a big crop, 16.2, 16.5 billion bushels. And what does that do from a carryout standpoint? Are we fair priced? The market's job every day, Michelle, is to find where fair value is. Some days it goes lower than it should. Some days it goes higher than it should.
Yeah. The interesting part as well, Brady, both in the corn estimates, even the soybean yield estimates around 53, is that it doesn't feel like we're accounting for all of the disease pressure, the drought that we're seeing, flash drought in the eastern corn belt, or even respect for this upcoming frost that we're hearing about.
Right. Yeah. Late season, the crop isn't made yet. It's off to a good start, had a great start, but the disease pressure coming in, hearing lots of chatter about maybe taking the top end off of your corn bushels with the southern rust. And then, the frost up north, will that hit? A lot of acres up there that are really contributing to the USDA's record number that could potentially be set back if we saw a lack of growing degree days or a sudden abrupt end to the growing season.
Yeah, and the basis levels are really telling us as well, we are going to have a hard time finding a home for all of these bushels in terms of storage.
Yeah, I think, those are things that farmers got to keep in mind here as, you may not like the price where it's at, but what's the market offering you today? The carry in the board, how are you capturing it? Are you actually going to capture the carry that's out there on the board? Does it make sense to do so? Basis is telling you in a lot of spots to put that crop away and go capture that carry and wait for a better day. But we'll see how much harvest pressure there is. You don't want to be in a position where you're forced to sell into a market when everybody else is. So be proactive with taking control and positioning yourself to capture that carry and maybe get into a better basis market down the road.
We would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about demand. Corn demand has been great. Soybean demand, we're still worried about China, aren't we?
Right. Yep. Corn, new crop sales nearly double the pace they were a year ago. Maybe the USDA isn't all that crazy with their, 2.8 billion bushel export number that they printed in the last WASDE report. So seen strong demand on the corn and beans, relatively strong despite the lack of China coming to the table. When will they come to the table? That's a big question. Bottom line, Michelle, I think we need a problem somewhere else. And the U.S. is in great position to supply the world with bushels. We've got the bushels. We just need a problem somewhere else.
So you mentioned off the top that wheat has kind of been an anchor here for this market as well. Why is wheat been such an anchor in your opinion?
Well, I'm out in Dodge City, Kansas, Michelle, and we have had a year of all years. It's been fantastic growing conditions out here. And we've got some recent moisture here out in the Southern Plains and the western part of the Corn Belt into wheat country. That's going to be great for putting this crop in. And you've got a cattle market that's really, really hot, Michelle. So the wheat market may not be buying acres, but the cattle market might be buying wheat pasture out there in the country.
Well, that makes sense. We're also not really competitive from a price standpoint on a global basis, even though we're down here at contract lows for HRW wheat.
Right. Yeah. You look at the, Ukraine getting some ideal moisture out there in the Black Sea country. And yeah, from a global perspective, the demand side, we've seen some decent exports, but nothing that's just earth shattering. And we just you need a problem somewhere else. We need to get past just captive export business and create some new markets for this wheat.
All right. And like you said, cattle, maybe a market for at least feeding or grazing some wheat here this fall. Let's talk about the cattle market because we're down again here today. We're kind of consolidating, but is this just routine profit taking or is this part of a bigger correction, do you think?
Well, we've got some key index that the feeder cattle index, that's a rolling average of cash trades out there, Michelle. Most people, everybody knows that, that. But today's a big data day for the feeder cattle index. We've got new data coming in and old data coming off. And that old data coming off was really strong data. I think 374 print on like 40 or 50% of the actual index data. And it's being replaced by some weaker data, 369. So the board is pricing in that kind of correction here that we're going to see in the index here today. Index is anticipated to drop $3 to $4. And we got September at 360 versus the index at 365. The index has put a heck of a run on the feeder cattle index, $15 over the last couple weeks. That's a significant dollar amount per head. And we've seen a huge run over the last year. I was looking, Michelle, 239 was the feeder cattle index a year ago, 365 today, $125 a hundredweight. It's $1,000 a head. That's huge.
Yeah, that is crazy. For sure, we're seeing feeders have been the leaders. And so the setback here is going to trickle through to the live cattle futures, or at least the fed part of the market. We've also seen a little bit of steady cash trade here in the South already this week.
Yep, steady cash. The South looks to close the gap with the North. I think they want to hold out for higher. The cutout also firmer, 416, the highest print for the choice cutout this year. The rib, the loin, the brisket primals lead the way. That's going to incentivize packers to potentially kill some more each week and bid up on those live cattle. So the South's looking to narrow that gap and see how high we can push this cash market.
Yeah, boxes at 416, as you say. This is the second highest level since COVID.
Yeah, you take 2020 off the chart, Michelle, and this is record type of prices. But right now, it is great to be a cowboy.
All right, but we do have to remember this thing could be very quick to go down if it does. And so risk management really important here, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Futures, options, LRP, those are great tools. Use the tools in your toolbox to go out there and get control. Just because you manage risk does not mean you have to be bearish this market. You can be a bull, just get control and manage your bottom line, protect that equity.
All right, some great advice. Thanks so much. Brady Huck with Advanced Trading. That is Markets Now.
You were right.
You were right.
You were right.
Well, you were right. When you choose your seed brand, there's winning, and then there's...
You were right. Should have gone with Brevant seeds.
When you choose Brevant seeds, you don't just win. You get to be right. Don't just win. Win. Talk with your retailer or visit Brevant.com/win to get started.